Hello, I'm Faiz Rahman and you're watching Cafe DC. Our guest today is Mrs. Esperanza Jalalian, who's an experienced, a person who has worked on the Hill and right now is working with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is a very unique entity here in Washington. But her forte is working on an organization or with an organization or for an organization which is heavily involved with the businesses and with the business environment in Pakistan. Esperanza, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here on the show. So let's talk about your first reference, which is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which I understand is not like any other Chamber of Commerce in this country or overseas. This is more geared towards advocacy on policy and other issues. Is that true? Is that a fair statement?
Well, Faiz, thank you first for the opportunity. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the largest business federation representing over 3 million businesses, include from all sizes, sectors, and regions, including local chambers of commerce across the country and American chambers of commerce abroad. As American companies look for international markets for growth, our international division has grown immensely. We now have a large staff dedicated to all kinds of programs. We have about 26 business councils and initiatives that are country-focused. We're really pleased to have a U.S.-Pakistan Business Council as part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We're part of the Asia Department.
I see. So which is like one of those 26 councils that you just mentioned. So Pakistan is, of course, is one of the main areas where you focus. But when it comes to your portfolio, I think in the chamber, you just don't focus on Pakistan. You also have other countries and other councils that you also take care of?
Yes, I also manage other programs with South Asian countries, and specifically focusing on Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, and
which makes sense.
To some extent,
yeah,
Nepal.
It makes sense because once you work on these countries, because they're from the same region, so you understand the region well, and you can help all those countries interchangeably, so to speak. Why did you think there was a need to form a U.S.-Pakistan Business Council at the Chamber?
Well, in 2002, U.S. companies brought the idea to the Chamber. They felt that it was an opportune time to engage both countries on commercial issues in the relationship, in the bilateral relationship. And a couple of companies came forward and said, we really would like to see the opportunity to form a group that will focus on strengthening commercial relations with Pakistan and look at different policy, advocacy issues that we can talk to government officials about to strengthen the business environment in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm. So basically, when this was founded in 2002, I understand that you were the first executive director of the council, and later you became president of the organization. Why this transition, and what difference does it make?
Well, as you mentioned, I previously worked at a government relations firm. I had the opportunity to work with the late Representative Charlie Wilson, who was at the time he left Congress, he joined a lobbying firm in town, and I happened to be working there, and I was assigned to work with him. It was quite a great opportunity because I feel that I got to learn about Pakistan, Afghanistan, and other areas of the world that he worked on, and I eventually worked on. He was a true friend of Pakistan, I would say. That you can tell that by the fact that he represented the government of Pakistan under the different governments. Also, he had a good insight he knew the country, he knew the history, and he knew how to represent the country in the government. We worked through different kinds of issues. In addition to Pakistan, we also represented other foreign governments and also worked with other companies that were dealing with issues, international trade, or any issues that they had, domestic issues as well.
Charlie Wilson, what a character. I mean, he was he's a very famous congressman overseas. He was the one who actually helped all these Afghan Mujahideens and Pakistanis against, the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979. And there was not enough resistance from there was resistance, but they didn't have the weapons, the right tools to fight this massive war imposed on them. And he was one figure, one person who actually made a huge difference. He came back after he visited Afghanistan and Pakistan. He came back and lobbied the Congress for more weapons and more ammunition for those Mujahideen. So, and then a book was written about him, and then finally a movie.
Afghans are now ready to fight a war against the Soviets. If they get weapons, they say they will win.
I want the CIA in my office at 10.
What is U.S. strategy in Afghanistan?
Well, strictly speaking, we don't have one, but we're working hard on that.
Who's we?
Me and 3 other guys.
I need airplanes, guns, and money.
A sudden influx of modern weaponry would draw attention.
Draw attention? This is the Cold War. Everybody knows about it.
Do you have any memories of him, any anecdote that you'd like to share with our, you just told us that, yes, he was a great friend of Pakistan, but any anecdote, any story that you would like to share with us today about
All I would say, I met Charlie after all of this that you mentioned. I met him when he left Congress. He was a working man. He was no longer representing his constituents from Texas.
Right.
So he had to be in the office to take care of his clients. So I did meet a different type of man. I did hear many of the stories that are told in the book from himself. He told me about most of those, so I could say, yes, many of those things are true. And it shows a little bit about the character. I feel that he was very truthful, straightforward, and that's kind of how he represented the government, or he dealt with his clients. He was pretty straightforward to say, this can be done, this cannot be done unless this happens, which I think is kind of different than other lobbyists do in Washington.
This also shows, as you mentioned, that, he was a very successful, very high-profile member of Congress. He was very close to, some of these very powerful rulers overseas. He was a very close, if not friend, at least very close to General Zia-ul Haq in Pakistan. But that, like you said, that shows his character, that once he retired from Congress, he had to still work for a living. He had to come in the office, and then he had, again, almost 9-to-5 job. So
he was very pleasant to work with, and I learned a lot from him, especially on strategy. He was very good about, of course.
Yeah, strategy you mentioned, of course.
Looking at the issue and looking at
the whole war and these Afghan war.
And so, in that sense, I think I learned a lot from him.
Good.
That was very good.
Very good. So let's come back to the council, but I think we may take a short break here, and once we come back, we'll talk about a little bit more, the council. The goal, the membership, and any challenges that you have, especially in Pakistan. So stay with us, please. We'll be right back.
We are made up of investors, exporters, and companies that have an interest in Pakistan.
Welcome back. Okay, SP. So people call you normally. They don't go and call the entire long name, Esperanza, which is a beautiful name, but, SP. Okay. So, SP, tell us more about the council. What's its membership, again? And I understand that every time there's a very high-profile delegation from Pakistan, prime ministers, presidents, trade ministers, financiers, they always come to your place, and you at least throw some parties for them, like receptions or dinners or lunches. So how does that help you in reaching out to basically the people in Pakistan and also accomplishing some of your goals?
As I mentioned earlier, the USPBC was formed with the objective to strengthen the commercial relationship, but also as a key objective is to also work on issues that will help Pakistan strengthen its business environment. We are made up of investors, exporters, and companies that have an interest in Pakistan.
So you have very large companies on your membership.
There are some multinationals, but we also have smaller, medium-sized companies.
Like Coke and...
We have companies in all sectors. Right. We don't have really critical mass in any sector. We just have... we cover
good representation of all
representation of the American investors in Pakistan. So we provide a forum, as you mentioned, for government officials to meet with the private sector and discuss some of those issues that we strongly advocate on. Our companies have been in Pakistan for sometimes 6 decades, so it's a long relationship with the country, with knowledge of the country. They're strongly committed, I would say, to their operations there. They've been there for the ups and downs in the bilateral relationship or any of the issues that they have in country. So what we're trying to do, we have tried to do over the last 10 years, is to engage government officials, not just from the Pakistani government, but our own U.S. government officials, on issues that could help Pakistan strengthen its business environment. Of course, we all know about the difficulties, financial difficulties that Pakistan has had in the last couple of years. So our focus has been on the issues such as energy, the energy crisis, as well as a lot of regulatory issues that come up from time to time. So we have developed this relationship with not just the Embassy of Pakistan here in Washington, but with the ministries in Islamabad. And when those ministers come in town, it's of great value for us to meet with them and have a good exchange.
You also went to Pakistan recently with a delegation. So
yes.
Tell us about that.
As part of our engagement with government officials, and I would say private sector organizations as well, because it's not just government officials, but all the other stakeholders out there. We plan trade missions. In previous years, we were able to take many missions to Pakistan, and this year was the first time in 5 that really we took a strong mission of companies to Pakistan. Some of these companies have been doing business in Pakistan for many years. Others are looking to invest and see Pakistan as a good place to invest in all kinds of sectors. The importance of this visit was because we were able to engage not just the government officials in Islamabad, but we also engaged private sector organizations in Lahore and Karachi. And that was of true value because we feel that in the last few years, private sector organizations in Pakistan had been strongly advocating for change, and they're being very vocal about it, and they're being heard. I think they're taken into account. We also sensed a lot of optimism, and the business community is positive about the first steps the government has taken in many issues. Of course, we can't say that they're totally happy. I mean, there are
always challenges. Yes.
There are always challenges for the government. I also feel that implementation sometimes is very slow in Pakistan. And you will find those who will say the government is moving very slow. But we need to give it some more time.
Political environment, or is it just the nature of the bureaucracies around the world?
I think it's the bureaucracy. I think at the high level there is great commitment to make changes. But we also have to realize that there are a lot of challenges when you have to consult with your stakeholders. And I think our chance to meet with the private sector, both the local Pakistani private sector as well as the American investors in Pakistan, including our own AmCham, the American Business Council, it was important to kind of see where we are on a lot of these issues. We definitely have similar issues. It's not different, the local or foreign. Many times we have the same issues. But so far, what I've seen this year up to this point is that there is still positivism about the government and the steps they have taken. We want to see more, and we will continue to advocate on all of those issues that we want them to tackle.
Very good. SP, you mentioned, all these companies being in Pakistan, having done business in Pakistan for a long time. And some of them, they're large companies, some of them, they're mid-sized companies. My question is, why would they become a member of your council to facilitate their business in Pakistan? I mean, they have their own infrastructure, they're large companies. They can afford a few more people in Pakistan or in other countries to just push their policies and business agenda, so to speak. What's your niche? Why they have to be a member of the council?
You will have to ask them directly, but I would say that American companies in general work with all types of organizations. The council provides them this opportunity to engage government officials in Washington, as well as Pakistani officials when they come to Washington. I mean, that's the greatest value, I would say. To the reasons why, like I said, they vary. So I can't really speak with for one or the other. Whether it is the networking opportunity to learn more about the issues and how we can be advocating for them. Many times it's more like an educational way to show the government that maybe this issue was tackled in another country in a certain way, and there is a possibility for Pakistan to look at other ways that the issues have been handled.
So is it only for the U.S. companies that they can become members, or some large Pakistani companies?
We are the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, so we represent U.S. companies.
Okay, so
yes, it's a U.S. Chamber program.
Interaction is okay with the foreign companies, but they cannot become members of either U.S.
For
Chamber.
this specific council, it's formed for U.S. companies with U.S. incorporation.
SP, we'll take another short break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk to you about your interaction with the people of Pakistan, because you have traveled to Pakistan quite a few times. You have met, people all the way from the grassroots to, to the highest level in the government. So please be prepared to share some of those experiences with us after we come back from this break. Stay with us, please.
But I also find that Pakistanis are very welcoming. I also always feel like I'm at home.
Welcome back. Okay, SP, you promised before we left for the break that you're going to share some of your stories in Pakistan. But let me start with this. You used to be, I think you're still Gomez. Your last name was Gomez first when I met you a few years ago. And now it's Jalalian, which is not exactly a Pakistani name, but it's a Pakistani sounding name, so to speak. And I'm sure when you go to Pakistan, a lot of people will think that Esperanza Jalalian is probably a Pakistani or a Pakistani American. Do you agree?
Actually, yes. I am Esperanza Gomez Jalalian. Through marriage, I actually added the Jalalian last name. My husband is of Armenian American descent. So
Armenian basically have these names like Duke Mejian or Armenian.
IAN.
Yes,
yes.
This is like they use IAN at the end of their name. So it's nothing to do with Pakistan. It may be like a Jalali in Pakistan. Jalali is like, when you come out and somebody is...
Well, Armenians are all over the world,
right,
including in the Middle East and South Asia. So at some point or another, maybe his family came from areas.
What do you feel when you go to Pakistan? What do you feel there?
So It's interesting you ask this because when I go there, it just feels like going to any other country. I've traveled, I would say, to a couple of countries in the world, and it just feels like I'm going there for business. I'm there for meetings, and I also have a chance from time to time to meet people, not just business, but just regular people whom I've met throughout the years, working for about 18 years now with Pakistan.
18 years?
18
Wow.
years. It's been a long time. And I'm so focused on whatever my assignment is, whether it's a trade delegation, most of the time it's for
I
meetings
can certify
with
that
government
you're
officials.
a very focused person, no doubt about it.
But I also have time to see the country. I've been able to travel in the country, especially the business hubs, of course, Lahore, Karachi, and in Islamabad because of the government offices. But I also find that Pakistanis are very welcoming. I also always feel like I'm at home, almost. It is fun. When I tell this to my friends and colleagues, they are surprised. And I think that's the part that I feel that we need to do a better job to show Pakistan to the world. I think the media could be doing a lot, more
Pakistanis,
work
get a lot
on
of
showing the other
negative,
side.
yes.
I mean, we know that there are issues and there are problems, but there is also a lot of positive stories that have to be told. I'm very pleased when I see those stories in the press. And we try to bring up those stories as well, because not many people know that American companies are investing and doing business in Pakistan. So I'm very pleased to be the spokesperson for American companies to say that, yes, we're there, we're committed, we see great potential in the future as well. Pakistan has a large population, a middle class, believe it or not, that grows, and that wants good products, and they like American products. We also feel that many companies have actually come out and said, we're doing well in Pakistan. So it's no secret. I mean, you talk to the investors, not just Americans, and many companies are doing well. Yes, we do have challenges, but also there are a lot of opportunities there.
Opportunities to come out. I'm glad you're saying those things. You were educated in this country, actually in this metropolitan area. You went to the great university, George Mason, your bachelor's, your master's, and also you worked with a Republican outfit. You also worked with a Republican senator, Bob Dole, his organization. And you also share a different background. You're an American, but you're a Hispanic American. So like so many of us, we have this distinction. But tell us about some of the issues that you face. I mean, for example, right now, the country is facing a major debate about immigration, which is not just affecting people with immigration or immigrant background, but also businesses, small or large, in this country and outside this country. So is it something that you take into consideration when you work on the policies and strategies?
This is an issue that I would speak on my personal views.
Sure,
totally. I'm an immigrant, and I also see the opportunities that America has to offer. And of course, I would like to see that America continues to provide that kind of hope to immigrants. And when I heard about the immigration reform and any steps taken to address this issue, of course it touches me personally as an immigrant. I've been here for 34 years. I have valued the opportunities that this country has to offer. So we know we've relied on immigration also for employment, and we continue to do so, and there is a need for some kind of solution to this problem. And of course, it touches me personally.
Very good. You actually didn't work directly with Bob Dole, senator. I mean, a very famous, iconic senator, and who was also a presidential candidate. And I think he ran against Bill Clinton in the second.
It was a great experience. In my earlier years, I worked for the Republican Party, specifically working for him at the Better America Foundation. Was one of the organizations that he formed before he was even thinking about running for president. It was short-lived, but I had the opportunity to work with members of his staff who had left the office to work on this organization and work with the Republican Party. I also worked on the Republican Convention in San Diego, which was, as a young person, it was a great opportunity to interact and learn about the political system. So I value that opportunity. He was a wonderful boss. I mean, I did not work for him directly, as you mentioned, but I heard from his staff how wonderful he was. He was voted many times by the congressional staff also, and elected as one of the most cordial and to work with. And so he's definitely someone that I would say that I was really pleased to have the opportunity to work for his organization.
SB, pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time in this heat and everything. You know, finally, I'm glad you could.
Again, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode of Cafe DC. Please don't forget to give us your feedback through our Twitter account as well as our Facebook. And also, don't forget to visit our website regularly, urduvoa.com. I'm Faiz Rahman saying you goodbye. Thank you.